So normally in talking to a group or doing a in-person presentation or a seminar or whatever the case is, I'd have this wicked cool slide that shows all this really cool stuff about me to impress you and make you think that I'm the best thing since sliced bread and you should totally listen to everything I say because I know amazingly famous people and whatever. But I figured we'd cut all that out because I have the opportunity of having some really amazing people that I work pretty closely with on this call, namely Shane, who's filling in for his better half, Angel, as well tonight, who's got some stuff she's doing at the high school for foster care, which is amazing. Super cool cause that she's a part of. And we've got mixed teams tonight. So some of you are in the Bishop's organization and some of you are in the Rena's organization. But I would love to give Shane and Megan and Brandon an opportunity to tell you guys who I am, because that makes it way easier for me.
I get to go first, right?
Of course.
Of course.
You get to steal all the best words.
Am I loud enough? Because
yes.
Okay. Well, for me, and thanks. I love seeing all these folks on, and I just want to share a little bit about who Paul has been to Angel and I. Back in December, I reached out to the Augmandino group and filled out a habit assessment just like you guys did. And one of their coaches reached out, contacted me, and then I started working with Paul directly there. And it was quite a process that I went through. He was very patient. It was amazing because just going through this process of like engaging, with a coach, it was something that was new to me. I was a little nervous. And as we engaged, I found that the biggest part that has held me back, not just in my business, but in all of the things that are valuable to me in my relationships, are the thought patterns that repeat themselves over and over, and the things that have repeated themselves over and over in my life. And it's been amazing. Paul has been able to take the information he got from the assessment and working with me and Angel just kind of on a weekly basis, and really help us do the things that help rebuild those thought patterns that really create our actions. And it's just been amazing. And it's really, been beneficial for us in every part of our life. I'd love to go, man, our business has grown tremendously, but our marriage has grown tremendously. And, our family and our relationships with our kids has grown tremendously. And the other areas of our life, with church and some of the commitments we make there have grown tremendously. So I would say that the last, 8 months with working with Paul has been, it's been critical and pivotal in the fact that the growth that we've experienced has been because of the things that we've learned in working with him. And so there you go.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate that. I'll Venmo you later.
Venmo you later. He gets a t-shirt. So we've been working with Paul for now a year. And we reached out to Augmandino. We had first gotten wind of the kind of work that they do through a convention, through the Optavia National Convention 3 years ago. I think where Dave Blanchard, his dad and the founder of the whole thing, did the keynote speaking, and we were blown away, and at the heart behind it, and how much it matched up with Optavia, and we were floored at during his speech, and it felt like he was reaching. He knew me before we even knew each other personally, if that makes sense. And so taking that habit finder that they offered was really eye-opening to me. And then I had a coaching session with Paul to follow up about that habit finder. And he knew things about me, probably, I don't know, that habit finder made up for like 10 years of of friendship probably. And so it was really, really, and you probably all feel the same way after you've taken the habit finder, and you might find out even more tonight. I see Sarah nodding her head. So it's been amazing. And so I work in a clinic 10 hours a day, definitely, like Shane said, a victim of the patterns of thinking that I had. And I just couldn't ever get past it. These are things that I've been doing my whole life. And I'm a pretty high performer. You know, I have my doctorate from a private school in physical therapy and everything, but I just couldn't get past a lot of the patterns of thinking that I had. And so in this last year, just recently in the last 2 months, I've actually felt comfortable enough, and you know, I had to do some work with identity and where I fit and everything, and dealing with like threats and intimidation from my wife, being such a top performer in Optavia and everything, and being as healthy as she was, to now I've left the clinic. I felt comfortable enough to leave the clinic, not threatening at all, and have been growing for that whole year, and now, you know, accelerated growth just in the last 2 months, where like I said in my live today about the patterns of my thinking not being me, but just being the patterns of my thinking. And when I reduce it to that level, I'm able to make a change. I can actually control what I do. I'm not a victim of my patterns, of my bad patterns of thinking. So I don't personalize my bad patterns of thinking anymore. I can change them. If I have these bad thoughts, I just know what to do about them. I change them, and then I can act. And so I can't say enough good things about it. I think Megan wants to say something though.
I totally feel the same way. Can't sing enough praises about Paul and all he has done for our family. To be really vulnerable and transparent. We were kind of in a crisis point when we first reached out to Paul. Brandon had that conversation with him probably even a year prior. Yeah. And he had been so struck by the connection that they had been able to form. And we had been still going through counseling through that whole year, but just, it felt like we weren't really getting anywhere. And it was almost, we were still just staying like still really frustrated, and almost just dealing constantly with all the past and hashing things out. And it was increasing resentment. And so now that we've been working with Paul, he has just really transformed our business, how we conduct ourselves together, helping us really become those observers to step back and identify the unhealthy habits of thinking, so that we can start changing those patterns that we would get into and those loops that we would get into. And so, yeah, he's just made a huge difference in our marriage and our parenting and in our business. And so we just really wanted to bless you guys with the opportunity to make this connection with him, and potentially identify some of your unhealthy habits of thinking so that you can start reframing things and moving forward. Right. So we're excited for you guys to all get to know him a little bit tonight.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to make sure this is as interactive of a session as possible. I have the chat pulled up here. I'll be keeping a close eye on it as much as possible. Feel free to jump off mute and just barrel over me verbally and ask questions or whatever. I can hang. I'm great at disaster control. So, you know, bring it on, whatever you guys want to do. But please feel free to interact throughout this. So if you understand that, please put a 1 in the comment. Let me know you see that, you get it. Put a 1 in the comments. Let me know that you're game for interaction. You're not just here as a spectator tonight, which is okay. But I would prefer that we have more active people than spectators. So, okay, cool, awesome. Because my number one goal tonight is to add value to everybody that watches this, everybody that's here attending live tonight, and be able to serve all of you, because I have the opportunity to step into the lives of the Rennas and the Bishops and a few others as well. And it's an incredible honor to be able to work with people on this level, to be able to create these kinds of results. And we've been doing it for a long time with over 100,000 people in the space that you guys work in, okay? Now, everybody here are health coaches, correct? Okay, so you guys believe in, as do I, a healthy body, healthy finances, and healthy what? Okay, got it. Mind. If you want to sum up who I am a mindset architect. That's what I do. When people ask me what I do, that's the simplest way I can tell them. I don't like to call myself a coach. in my space as a health coach, I think it's phenomenal because it's very specific and it's very clear what your outcomes are. But as a coach in general, especially my least favorite term in the world, a life coach, I wouldn't be caught dead calling myself a life coach, just because it's a very diluted marketplace where everybody wakes up this morning and says, I'm going to be a life coach, and I'm going to suddenly start trying to charge people thousands of dollars to solve problems I haven't figured out for myself. My background is in real estate investing. I've been in direct sales. I joined my first direct sales company when I was 22, generated a 6-figure income inside of the first 12 months. I know this space. I know networking. I know community and culture. I've worked in higher education. I helped Jack Welch, who from looking around is going to ring a bell for maybe a few of you generationally, but he was the greatest CEO in American history. He was the CEO of General Electric. We built a top 25 MBA program in the world, blah, 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 blah. I could say a bunch of other stuff that could sound impressive to a few of you and probably put the rest of you asleep. But really, at its core, I'm a mindset architect. That's what we do. We marry intuition and science in what we do. It's not just intuitively feeling around with, here's what worked for some people and it could work for you. My personal mission is to make personal development personal again. Does anyone here not believe in personal development? It's totally okay. I'm not calling you out at all. That's a lie. I totally am. Anybody? Okay. Everybody talks about personal development, right? And how important it is. You talk to the billionaires that I've interviewed, and personal development is so important. Your mindset's so important. Multimillionaires, personal development so important. Top leaders in this company, personal development so important. And yet the challenge is the majority of personal development isn't personal at all. It's very general. It's very philosophical. It's very, this worked for me, so I wrote a book about it. Hopefully it'll work for you. And they're great concepts, great philosophies. But I want to start off tonight sharing with you the number one reason personal development isn't making you more money. The number one reason you haven't seen a significant return, because I've worked with as a company, we've worked with over 100,000 people, and the majority of them, meaning all of them, just statistical people don't like you to be categorical, but the majority of them have not seen the return from the work they've put into personal development and seen it come back out in terms of income and measurable real results. And I'm going to tell you why. The number one reason personal development doesn't work for most people is because they believe that personal development is a philosophical game. That mindset is some philosophy, it's some idea. Well, when I say I'm a mindset architect, I don't mean a philosophical architect. The reason personal development doesn't work is because it's not a philosophical game. It is a biological game. You have actual neural thought processes, actual patterns of electrons and neutrons and everything else in your brain creating significant patterns that are resulting in your current reality. Philosophy matters because it can shape the way those processes work. And with the correct application of principles and inflection points and other things that I won't bore you with in terms of neurological science, like neuroplasticity to make me sound super smart. Short of those things, philosophy is going to be a water pistol to a gunfight. Okay? Does that make sense? So we're going to want to shift our mindset to understand that this is a biological game. So we need biology being a science. We need scientific tools to be able to create shifts, significant shifts, rather than continuing to listen to the people who, for lack of a better term, created it intuitively, which is just a really fancy way of saying they did it accidentally, which is another way of saying they had natural strengths that supported landing in the right place at the right time to create it. I'm a big fan of providence. I'm a big fan of luck. But it shows up when the right biological systems and the work and action are in place. So tonight we're going to talk about some of those processes that are going on, because your thoughts, what are going on in your brain, impact every facet of your life. Your current reality right now, the way you perceive it, is a result and an outcome of the thought processes you have right up here between your ears and your noggin. That's your reality, your perceived reality. That's the energy that you create. That's the emotions you feel. Those are the results you create. The decisions you make are influenced entirely by the framework of your thought processes. If that's the case, then that's where we want to start. If we want real change, we want real transformation, we're going to want to understand how that works. And the good news is I know exactly how that works for all of you. This is a scientific output of how all of you think. Okay, short of, I think, 10 people, okay, out of everybody that registered for this event tonight. I did an aggregate report. We call it a team DNA report. And this tells me how all of you think in aggregate so that I can speak to you as a group and understand that 70% of you are fantastical thinkers. What that means is you have an uncanny, amazing gift of thinking really big, really fast. And so effortlessly that your mind can run away from your reality faster than you could ever chase it down. And that can be a great gift, but if not managed appropriately, it will tear your life apart. Because what goes from your reality never being able to catch up with the fantasy, then turns into not liking the way it actually shows up because it doesn't match the fantasy, that then turns into beating you up because it doesn't show up the right way. It's a really difficult cascading process. That's a quick fire example that might have gone for some of you, but that's what I want to dive into tonight. We don't have time for the entire report, obviously. This is 6.4 quadrillion variables of information about the way you think. But you don't have to worry about that because we've spent the hours, the time, the money, and everything in figuring out why this matters to you as a health coach. Why this matters to you to reach the rank that you deserve to reach. To be able to create the influence you want to create. To be able to create the income and the money you want to have. To be able to engage people properly to add the value that is Optavia to their lives. We don't just coach into this company. We believe in this company, okay? Just a box of my feelings right there. This is a big deal for us. And Dave said this from stage. My business partner, my dad, Dave, spoke from stage at convention and said, we've been looking for a company like this for 15 years. We've worked with just about everybody out there. And if any of you haven't vetted and actually experienced others out there, this is the real deal. That's what's so fun about these meetings, is I get to come in knowing that the platform, the products, the compensation plan is off the chain, just amazing, so that we can work on you and not have to worry about whether the system and whether the program works. That's done, finished, end of story. You don't have to figure that stuff out. This is as good as it gets. So now all the work we do up here can create a direct return, but also clear up some things. That if it's not showing up the way you want it to, that it doesn't have to do with the compensation plan. It doesn't have to do with the community. It doesn't have to do with the program. It has everything to do with how you think, which again dictates everything about the way your reality shows up, the choices you make, and everything else. But again, please understand this is a biological game, because the second reason that personal development doesn't work for most people is they try to develop too fast. Okay, I know here that 76% of you are impatient in terms of your reality showing up the way that you want it to and other people showing up the way you want them to. I know that 76% of you, if I was to put a tape recorder up to your mind and then play it back to you, it would sound like this. Do you know what I could get done if I didn't have to involve these other people? Do I have to do everything myself to get it done right? That's what the thought process sounds like. That's not you. That's the thought process. Those of you going, oh my gosh, she totally nailed me, or might have a little bit more challenge surrendering to that. Those of you going, I don't know that that shows up. Well, it does, but you may not realize it. And you may have learned to compensate for it really, really well. But I know that in that particular instance, that kind of impatience, there are very specific thought processes to be able to understand the risks involved in thinking that way. And when we talk about trying to develop too fast, that impatience drives wanting everything right now. And what's adding that? My first example, that 70% of you think fantastically, just big picture. And you can run away from your reality so fast. And in doing so, you want your physical reality to show up just as quickly. You may not want it on purpose, but that's what's happening because your brain can see it. So the brain doesn't understand that what you can see and feel as if it was actually happening is going to take some time to create. And the last thing this fantastical measurement wants to hear is that it's going to be tick, 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 the millimeters of creation and what you want to create, what you want to have show up in your current reality. So those are just a few things that we could touch on, and I could wow you with measurements and whatever, but I want to give you the overarching dialogue of the group. Would that be all right? The 30,000 foot diagnosis of Team Renna and Bishop. Here it goes. We have a very, very capable team here that when you are engaged, amazing things happen, that things work, things make sense. But there's enough noise going on, wishing that you'd be feeling like you'd be further along by now, or wishing that things would show up differently, that it sabotages your ability to engage consistently. And then as I can see in here, you beat yourselves up about it. That's kind of the overarching piece. Incredible gifts in this group. And I have huge props to Megan and Brandon and Shane and Angel, because 84% of this group has a major challenge with needing to be right, getting really attached to your own ideas. And I don't mean needing to be right in terms of like entitlement or immaturity. I need to be right. It's more of a need to be right, like someone who's dehydrated needs water. Because when you get that attached to your idea, which is a tremendous gift, by the way, when we learn to manage the risk correctly, it's why, what was the number? 84% of you have brains that never shut up. They're always going, thinking about new and better ways to do things. I can see some of the smirks from the people who that definitely applies to. But I mean, statistically, we're looking at almost 9 out of 10 of you. But here's where I'd like to shift, okay? And I want to make sure I'm keeping an eye on this. Caitlin says, my ability to engage consistently feels constantly attached by guilt. Anytime I miss a step, it almost throws me off the entire wagon of consistency. We'll talk about why that is. And in fact, I'll give the preface to that right now. Your thought processes are your thermostat. The way that habit finder showed you the risks in the way you think. It didn't tell you who you were. It's not a personality test. If any of you saw coachable over to the right and went, I'm coachable, yeah, you are. But the thought process that we decided to call coachable, because it made a lot more sense than calling it frank, okay, or something like that, and it was way easier than telling you it's a non-denumerable infinite times a systemic value divided by an Aleph index 0. I mean, that we could give you the mathematics, but we'd rather just call it coachable, that you have a risk involved in how you think. But a risk doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it does mean you're going to want to have a higher level of awareness around how that's showing up in your life. So as we consider that, and as we consider the impact of your thermostat, most people that come and finally work with us have been spending their life with a thermostat set here. And think about your thermostat in your house, okay? If you open the door to try and cool off the room, what happens as soon as that thermostat changes even 1 degree? It immediately kicks in countermeasures to return the room to the same temperature that it was. And you can open the window and you can turn on the fireplace to warm the room up. But if it's set on a certain degree, as soon as it changes, it counters that. So many people are opening windows in their life and opening the door and buying little electric fans and turning on the fireplace of personal development without ever actually shifting the thermostat. Here's the good and bad news. Your life is showing up right now exactly the way you want it to because you're the one who set the thermostat, whether consciously or unconsciously. It's one of the hardest, best things to realize about where you're at right now, that your life is showing up exactly the way you want it to, consciously or unconsciously, because you're the one who sets the thermostat. But remember, reason number 2, personal development doesn't work for most people because they try to develop too fast. What happens if you turn your thermostat in a room that's 90 degrees down to 65? Well, that's why everybody in any Airbnb or hotel you stay in says, please don't turn it lower than this, because you burn out the system. I doubt there's anybody here who couldn't have related to feeling that at one time or another in terms of trying to change that thermostat. As we tried to change it too much, and as Caitlin talked about, we can't sustain it because it seems to throw off a whole chain reaction of everything. And Caitlin, I wish we had more time to talk about guilt, because that's a really challenging one, that it impacts the way we our self-worth, the third section in the Habit Finder. I will tell you this, though. You can't cure guilt. You can't cure shame. You can't cure a damaged self-esteem. You can simply align everything else and allow it to heal. The last person that's ever going to believe in you is going to be you. So stop trying to fix self-esteem. That comes last. That's why it takes courage to be a health coach, because you've got to make everybody else more important than your own noise so that you can then get rid of your noise and realize how important you are as well. Now we're bouncing all over the place a little bit, okay? And that's kind of, I may or may not have a few infusers in me. But anyway, with that said, here's your turn. I'm going to ask you a question that'll shape the rest of our conversation tonight. And before I do that, does anyone have any questions about the that I just shared over the last little bit? Anything popping in anybody's head? Any questions that I can kind of back to and address? Don't be shy. If you're waiting for somebody else to ask, go. Or come off mute.
Hey, I don't know if you're going to go into this, but I think my question, I was about to type it in, but that's takes so much more time, is how to slow down that desire for change. Because I think, as you were talking about that definitely shows up even in my workplace. Like, I'm like, change, we can make things so much better. And a lot of people don't love that. So, but just even for yourself, like trying to slow that process down. I'm not sure if you're going to go into that, but that's my one question that I had.
Great question. I'll address it briefly right now. If you don't mind staying off mute. I like to workshop stuff, not just answer questions.
Sure.
Why do you want to slow down? Why do you feel like you need to do that?
Well, I don't actually.
Okay.
I like going hard and fast, but I think it does sometimes feel overwhelming of, okay, I'm like spinning my wheels, but things aren't happening as quickly as I'd like them to. And they're just kind of what Caitlin said. Well, it kind of just throws it off if things don't go in the same, things don't change in my external as much as I'd like them to. And change is a slow process. But yeah, and you don't want to get burnt out. So, I mean, that's one thing that I wrote down when you said that. But okay. I like fast change and doing things. That's like part of my personality for sure.
Okay. Can I ask you to be brave for a second? Do you mind if I lay into you for a second?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And I really appreciate this because this is really important. As a coach, working in this space for this long with this many people, one of the greatest values I can add is when I can hear someone when they're doing the talking and when their thought processes are doing the talking. I'd love for you to go back through this recording and listen to you say what you just said, because it was awesome. Because there were parts that you said that were you, your true self. Then there were parts where your thoughts were doing the talking. And they contradicted each other. There was the presentation of, I like it fast and hard, and this works for me. And then there were things you said that indicated it's not working for you and it's creating challenges. Then there was the part of you that was talking about how it, you know, it's really good, but you also understand that change needs to be slow. So it's not, I mean, it was a little bit back and forth. And Sarah, please know, I don't bring this up to knock on you. Anyone else I had called on would have probably done the exact same thing. And I know I just ruined the chance of getting anyone to ask any questions out loud for the rest of the night. But please don't let that deter you, because that is not a knock on you and who you are. That is a great example of the constant balance we've got between us and our thoughts, which are not us. We're not our thoughts. If we were our thoughts, we'd all be felons. I guarantee you, everybody on here in the last week thought something that would have sent them to prison. Okay? But we're not our thoughts. We get an opportunity, though, to start to bridge the gap between our conscious and unconscious mind, which what I've measured here is your unconscious mind. There are some elements of your unconscious mind you're aware of. Those are the parts of the habit finder you looked at and were like, oh, that nailed me. Those are the parts you're aware of. The parts where you looked at and went, those are the parts you're not so aware of. There's one thing, Sarah, that will disrupt your opportunity to grow the most. Okay? And it's this. That's the number one way to maintain self-deception, is to stay busy. It is the number one way to make sure you don't reach a higher level in your thermostat, in your personal growth. Daniel Putnam, great author, great man, said that man's number one form of self-deception is staying busy all the time.
Absolutely.
That's generally what people interpret as speed, as going fast. Okay? The challenge is, think about driving down the freeway. I was driving down the freeway today, in fact, and this might get me in big trouble, but and I couldn't help but pull out my phone and take a picture of this massive rainbow out in the distance. Like, you can't even see the context of it very well. It's like when you see the moon and you're like, that's huge, and you take a picture and it's like, beep. Like, oh man, I can't capture that. But in the distance, I could see it beautifully. And when we're busy and we're moving fast, we feel like we can see the stuff out in the distance great. But what are the chances I'm going to be able to read a magazine ad on the side of the freeway on the shoulder when I'm driving past it at 75 miles an hour? What are the chances I'm really going to be able to take in the details that matter? And here's the biggest challenge, Sarah. Your answer to slowing down isn't going to come from learning techniques like opening the door, cooling down the room kind of thing. The actual shift in the thermostat to slowing down for you and most people that have this challenge is figuring out what's hiding behind the speed. There is a deep intrinsic need for being busy or for the speed. And I'm not saying speed is bad, but if that's your default setting and you're not getting the results that you want, you might be getting results, awesome, but they're not the ones you really want at the pace or the level that you'd like to be receiving them. I was at convention, I saw this person that hit presidential in 6 months. What's wrong with me? You know, and we start playing the comparison game and whatever, so we think we need to go faster, and we can still see the stuff out in the distance, but we're missing all the details that make it work. Asking ourselves, why do I need the busyness? Why do I need the speed? The answers to that question will unlock your personal formula for slowing down. And what's beautiful about slowing down is if you learn to do it the right way, you'll actually speed up the right way. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think, I mean, the funny thing is when you're talking about busyness, I mean, that's our culture. Our culture is constantly busy. And whenever people tell, it's funny because I actually don't like to be busy. I like a lot of margin in my life, actually.
You like a lot of what?
margin in my life.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I'm interested to hear more about that, because I think whenever people say, oh my gosh, Sarah, you're so busy, you're like working full time plus doing coaching, and how do you do life? I'm like, I cringe, because I'm like, no, I don't want you to have that picture of me, because that's not what I want to portray. I'm doing action, but I don't want to be perceived as busy. And so it's just funny that you said that, because I actually don't like being busy. Decided to not be as busy. So.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity to dig in a little bit. Who else?
I would love to hear you speak. I was talking to my coach today a little bit on our coach call about the impatience. You talked about our team as a whole being a bit impatient. And so I don't know if you could speak a little bit more to that. I know that, like when Sarah was saying, moving hard and fast, like I think we all have a desire to want our businesses to grow fast and big. And like you said, oh, I want to reach presidential in 6 months. I think we all want to dream big. But can you speak more, I guess, to that impatience that you were speaking in regards to? I guess for myself, I've been reflecting on, I don't want to drag anybody along. I want them to want it. And so sometimes that means slowing down for them to be where they need to be in order to be there. So just recognizing that in order to foster relationships and foster my business in the ways that I want to, that I have to sometimes slow down and be less impatient to grow. But could you talk more in regards to the impatience piece?
Sure. I can break it down pretty simply for you, Stacy, and then you can ask questions from there. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Patience comes from alignment. And alignment creates clarity and awareness and precision and speed and performance and everything else from the right place. And so if we consider the alignment of the universe, because the habit finder tool you guys took, like I said, it's not a personality test. It's not tell you what color you are or what Disney princess you are. I was Jasmine, by the way. Anyway, but like it's a scientific tool. Like the way you get an EKG measurement of your heart, you can disagree with whether that's really the rhythm of your heart or not, but it is. And it's the same thing with the habit finder, and it's based on axiological mathematics, which is where we get our alignment. And I'm not going to spend the balance of the evening teaching you axiological math and Cantor's transfinite calculus. That would be a big fat waste of time, and most people don't like math, okay? But the reason I share that with you is so that I don't have to take unnecessary time defending what I'm about to tell you. That is, this is proven math and science. The alignment of our lives is this. Number one, in our alignment, if you think of this like your spine, okay, this is the top of your spine creating the alignment, is the intrinsic. The intrinsic is the priceless, beyond worth and value elements of your life. There is one specific thing that totally embodies intrinsic value, and it is a human being. A human being is beyond worth. They are priceless. Every single one of you on here tonight are priceless on an intrinsic level. If I am valuing you if I'm valuing Jason as an intrinsic human being, he is priceless. And I'm valuing him because of his beautiful bald head, then I'm valuing him based on image, which gets to the extrinsic, which is the stuff. So now I've moved from the priceless, the beyond worth, to the stuff, the results, the measurements, okay? The things of life. Then I can move into the systemic, which is the structure of life. Structure, right? Okay? I happen to know that 92% of you intrinsically resist structure. We can have a little giggle about that another time. Okay? This is the appropriate alignment. Stacy, when you approach anything you do and you lock in intrinsic, systems check. Think of like Houston when they're launching a rocket. Systems check, intrinsic, check, then extrinsic, check, then systemic check, meaning you have a clear connection to the intrinsic value of what you're doing or who you're talking to or whatever. Then you lock in the extrinsic result you'd like to get, or actions you take, or anything else extrinsic. And then you lock in the systemic structure to support it. You are in total alignment. Patients will come to you naturally. Perspective will be created beautifully. Marianne Williamson, one of my favorite authors ever, wrote that one of the greatest miracles we can create in our lives is a change in perspective. Okay? You want patience, you want precision, and even, Sarah, if you want speed, you need alignment to do so. Imagine if one of your vertebrae was out of alignment and you were trying to run really fast. Many of us are trying to build our health coaching business very much in that way. And some of us reach high heights and high ranks, and then we don't sustain them. Some of us have experienced this in our transformation where we lost a lot of weight, but there was a vertebrae out of alignment, and so we gained half of it back, or whatever the case is. When we are in alignment, that's when we are in optimal condition. Here's when impatience occurs, Stacy. When this one starts to go and sneak up here. When it tries to leapfrog the intrinsic. When the results we'd like to achieve with someone, even though we are retroactively accrediting it to because we care about them and their pricelessness, but we do it after the fact, we start to get impatient because the results don't show up as quickly as we'd like them because we've lost an intrinsic perspective. You talk about you want to work with people who really want this. How many of you would have minded being the one to bring Doug Wood into this business? And Tia, anybody would have minded that? Have that as one of your fibic legs? Okay. Guess who Doug and Tia didn't seem like when they were brought into this business? They didn't seem like Doug and Tia. They didn't seem like someone who wanted this. Neither did Terry. Terry Miller didn't open her coach kit for like 8 months. So be careful with getting impatient because you're over-focused on the extrinsic elements of who you're talking to. But it doesn't mean we just love people and just care about people without taking the other two into account, because then we're violating the total alignment. Is this making a little sense, Stacey?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so it's a really simple mathematical equation when extrinsic starts to float above intrinsic, meaning the results or the stuff or the things or the outcomes we want, without us realizing this is an unconscious shift, become more valuable to our thought processes than the pricelessness, the beyond worth, the love we have for the human being we're working with or that we're in a relationship with or whatever. Impatience ensues.
That's awesome. Kind of confirms where I was already headed in regards to reflection this week, or this month, I should say. So awesome. Thank you.
And guess what Optavia has in spades for you?
What?
This. Systems. Structure. The challenge is if these are out of alignment, structure does this. Here's your dreams. Here's your business. Here's what you want to create. If it's out of alignment, structure will go like this and try to control it. And 92% of you will resist it and rebel against it without even realizing it, because you know if you just follow the simple system, if you just do this, your business would grow, and yet you don't understand why you don't do it. It's because you're reacting to this misalignment. When it is aligned, Stacy, guess what structure does? It supports you. It gives you clear evaluation where you can be focusing to shift and balance and all these different things. Okay?
Cool.
It's much easier said than done, or more appropriately, much easier said than become, to align these things. But these three mathematical levels, these are the soft words for them: intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic. Okay, a little easier than talking about a non-denumerable infinite, a denumerable infinite, and a singular concept. And then all the mathematical jargon that goes with that. This, at its simplest form, is the core of everything that we measure and everything that we coach towards. Because if we can achieve alignment, we can shift the thermostat. And then suddenly hitting the next rank isn't nearly as hard as you thought it was going to be. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, where you can actually notch up rather than do what most people do, Remember, we've been coaching in this business for a couple of years. I'm going to pull the curtain back right now. Megan, Brandon, Shane, stop me. Okay. Here's where you are. Okay. Let me bring this a little closer so you guys can see this. Okay. Here's you. Way up here is, let me make sure this is future you. Okay. Actually, to be more appropriate, we could probably call it presidential you. Yeah. Or global you, or whatever it is for you. And if any of you are saying, well, it's not about the rank, then we need to have a totally different conversation. Because if you're caught saying that, I promise you, you're never going to get it. But we'll talk about that later. Well, it's not about the rank, it's about what it does. Well, then it is about the rank, so quit creating an unnecessary tug of war. All right, I'm going on a tangent here. Here's you. Here's future you. Here's what most people do. All right, I read the books. I looked at the systems. I was on the sponsoring boot camp. I went to convention. I'm ready to charge this hill. Go, Geronimo! And we fight and fight and fight and fight, and we get really, really close. We feel like we're doing the things that are going to get us there. It's only a matter of time. And then it feels like it's even further away and further away, and then we get hit by this landslide of unmet expectations, burnout, and exhaustion. And guess what happens? We don't just fall back to here. We fall like back down here. We end up even further back than where we were at because we tried to charge the hill of future us rather than take incremental, foundational shifts in who we are, how we think, and therefore how our reality shows up. This is caused by impatience. This is caused by fantasy. Which is an incredible gift that, what did I say, 70% of you have? A gift to be able to think about things that haven't even happened yet. Okay? Just laughing at some of the comments. But the challenge is that 98% of people with the gift that 70% of you have use it destructively. They use it to escape from their reality. In other words, 3 out of 4 of you use it to escape from your reality without even realizing it. Because you have the power to dream about what's possible in your life with such vividness that your body reacts as if it is your current reality. It even releases the same chemicals, the same endorphins, the same norepinephrine that starts coursing through your body as if it actually happened. But then the challenge is it doesn't show up like that, which is how fast you could create it up here. And so now your body reacts to that. And it's got to react to it with cortisol and adrenaline and all kinds of things. Ever had one of those days where you just felt like you were crawling, like, oh, it's only 1 o'clock? Are you kidding me? You haven't really done much, or you've drowned yourself in busyness rather than productivity. That's usually a hangover from that amazing gift of going into those other things. What you're going to want to learn is what these incremental steps are, because this is the biological game. As if you guys could actually read my handwriting, okay? We have these amazing things called, hot topic, dream boards that Doug suggests to go big on. But like you're saying, I am looking at these things that are not 1 step away. They're like 10 steps away. Okay. Anybody here have a dream board? Yeah. All right. Okay. Not a lot of active hands. Put a 3 in the comments section if you have a dream board or have been intending on creating one. Thank you, Caitlin. Okay. I'm a big fan of the concept behind a dream board, a dream wall. Yes. Dawn, the one-upper. Love it. Okay. I'm a big fan. Laura, where did you get 2 from? Okay. So I'm a big fan of dream boards. There you go. I'm a big fan of dream boards for the principle behind them. Here's the risk, and it's a big one. The big risk is that dream boards become a daily destination I know statistically that 70% of you who use dream boards or big whys, big visions, have the capacity to unconsciously go to that, but to go there with the intentions of thinking about what life will be like after. If your dream board evokes the idea of how wonderful your life will be when you have those things, it is killing your business. If your dream board is inspiring you for the passion-driven millimeters that it will take to create those things, meaning they have become targets, like targets, then you are using it very effectively. But for 70% of you, it can be really difficult to do that without the appropriate principles, the appropriate implementation, because your brain is naturally wired to treat it as a daily destination, as a fantasy, an escape. Because why do the work if I could just dream about what it's going to be like after I've done it? This isn't something you're doing consciously. I don't want to indict anybody here. But these are the tendencies. This is the math. This is what we've been able to study in over 100,000 people and over 2,000 health coaches. Comes from some of these incredible gifts. So those of you pursuing dream boards, and I'm a big fan of almost everything that Doug teaches. Okay? And I only add the qualifier because he still has more to teach. I haven't heard everything he has to teach. But everything I've heard so far, I totally agree with. Just be sure if you're going to attack a dream board that you do it as a target and understand your natural proclivity, which is a negative tendency to use it as a daily destination without realizing it. But it's a beautiful way to stir up passion when used appropriately. And passion is a willingness to suffer for something we love. Okay. Any other questions? Thoughts? What's coming up for people? Love that. It's really important. People will argue with what Caitlin just said. In reality, for us big dreamers, we could make a new board every month, just the small steps. That's actually, so I love to work with clients on the fact that our why is a moving target. We can have the big ones, but we should have incremental ones that might change daily or monthly or whatever the case is. That's a great comment to have, to be able to build those things in. And you can argue all day long for whether you should have BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals, or whether you should have SMART goals. The answer is you should have both. Because if we just have SMART goals, it's a natural human tendency to get addicted to just checking lists. Did that, without them being substantially changing or transformative in our lives. And then the risk of just going after the BHAGs is we train ourselves into failure and disappointment and rationalize it because the goal was too big. So we want to bring those together and they can feed off of each other. A BHAG, a big goal, is something you don't know how to accomplish. A SMART goal is something you already have a system in place to do. She said, love that. We're willing to suffer for our passions. I have a dream board written and so do my kiddos. They drew theirs. That's awesome. I think I love that target, so not to get discouraged. I'm not bagging on dream boards. You just want to be really aware of how you're using them, okay? Any advice for a tendency to get overwhelmed and shutting down? Ooh, this actually comes from a really similar place, Don. The ability to vividly visualize, to see big picture possibilities, whether you're aware of it or not. One of its greatest challenges, Don, is that it doesn't just have you considering what you need to get done to accomplish your goals. I want you to feel this. What it does, because it can process things step 1 to a million like that, is we don't just consider the things we need to get done. We feel everything we need to get done all at once, which makes it nearly impossible to focus on just the next thing we're going to want to focus on getting done. And that's a lot more than just the discipline of saying, I'm just going to focus on the next thing. Don, I wish I had time to go into the cascading thought processes that create the challenges of overcoming that overwhelm. and avoiding the shutdown. But a lot of the shutdown comes from trying to charge too far up that hill rather than building the incremental and methodical shifts. And there is actually a specific scientific order in doing that. And that's the core and the foundation of our program. So shut down the last 2 weeks prior to yesterday. Thank you for your transparency, Caitlin. I knew I was going into the process of moving, so I just shut down. You know what? Interestingly enough, Caitlin, so I have a coach. Shocker, the coach has a coach. I'm kind of into integrity like that. Every coach should have a coach, which is also a great model that Optavia follows. And so in terms of that, my coach actually taught me to intentionally shut down, to intentionally break down. He went through a 6-month acquisition of one of his major companies, and it was a nightmare. And he knew when it was going to be finished, when stakeholders were going to get their checks and he could exhale. And he actually planned a Friday and a Saturday full of depression and crying and watching chick flicks and whatever. And he told his wife, I'm going to be totally unemotional. I'm going to be totally emotionally unavailable on these 2 days. By not doing that, he probably would have been battling with little versions of those challenges for weeks. But he poured into it in those 2 days. He was intentional about it. And it's something that took me a long time to master, because I've battled with depression since I was a teenager. And for whatever reason, it rears its ugly head every summer. And it's been so good for me the last couple of years working with my coach to choose my depression, to really lean into it for a day and be aware of it. And it usually loses its speed, it loses its momentum pretty fast when we do that. It's when we try to pretend those things aren't there. So I love the fact that you intentionally shut down. That can actually be really, really healthy to do. Sarah asked if I could simplify the biological process versus the personal development. I cannot. Okay, Caitlin, I'm just kidding. I'll give it a shot. Most people approach personal development philosophically. And I'll give you my 2 nails on chalkboard examples. The 2 biggest indicators that you are basing your personal development on a philosophical game rather than a biological one is that you talk about or acknowledge breakthroughs and ahas. Breakthroughs and ahas are some of the most worthless currency in personal development in the world, because most people's breakthroughs are broken and most ahas can't be deposited in the bank. Now, an aha and a breakthrough is philosophical, it's mental. And it only matters if you do something with it. And most people don't. They get the high of the aha, they finally have momentum, they finally broke through, and it's a mind game. And more often than not, it's a mind trap. It's a particular measurement in your assessment called methodical that wants to close the loop on your transformation, because at the core of the biological game, Sarah, is a brain that has one objective and one objective only, and that is to keep you safe. At its core, in your monkey brain, in your amygdala, in your hard-coded brain, it only wants to keep you safe, which sounds nice, like as a mom or a dad keeping your kids safe. But here's what it means to your brain: keeping you predictable. It wants to keep you predictable. That's all it wants to do. And if it can have you focused on ahas and breakthroughs that don't actually create change in your life, it gets best case scenario, because you can feel like you're changing without actually challenging the neurological processes of your brain that would be required to actually transform. Unfortunately, it makes your life very frustrating, very hamster wheelish, feeling like you're starting back at square one, like you can see it and taste it and touch it, but you never really get to keep it. All of those things start to play into that core brain trying to keep you predictable. Now, we're running out of time. I want to be cognizant of that. And I'll stay on as long as you want. I'm here for you guys, for my love and respect of the bishops and the Renas and this team. But I do want to share one thing, if I could, really quick, and then I'll hang on for any other questions you've got. Anything else you want to workshop or whatever the case is. Megan knows exactly what we're talking about, is there are incremental methodical steps to increasing your thermostat. And I've had an opportunity to visit with Megan and Brandon and Shane and Angel, and we would love nothing more than to get to offer you guys an opportunity to change that thermostat, to take it as far as we don't want to slow anyone down. That's not the type of personal development we do, but we want to make sure you can sustain what you create. We want to get you there as quickly as possible. We love nothing more than the hundreds of health coaches that we've helped rank up in this company that were just stuck or speed up or whatever the case is. We want measurable outcomes. The best way that I can do that for all of you, for the majority of on this call, there may be some of you that want to consider personal coaching. It's a major investment. The ROI is proven. We don't need to spend time arguing that. But what we have for this team is a group coaching experience. I have to cap it at 20. I can't take more than 20 because in order for me to be effective, I have to see every face while we're coaching. It's how I create a group experience that feels like you're getting personal coaching. It's how I hold you accountable. It's how I can read whether you're sitting back a little bit or whether you're really diving into the principles. It's what allows my intuition to work the way that it can. Now you're getting not just me, you're getting me and you're getting the big dog. You're getting my business partner, my dad. In a group coaching, it's going to be 6 months, every other week, where we're going to take you through the incremental and methodical steps of changing your intrinsic thermostat, of being able to hold you accountable to the systems and the structures that are already in place that are so simple. That's why they're called simple systems, to be able to take your business to where it deserves to be able to create the alignment and reconcile the challenges that are holding you back. And rather than making a $10,000 plus investment to working with a coach personally, we want to do this group capped at 20. If we have 2 sets of 20, I'll go back to Dave and we'll figure it out, but capped at 20 for $2,000. On top of that, not only is it $2,000, but for those of you who need it, we can finance it. If you've got at least reasonable credit, we can finance that over 12 months for less than $200 a month, or if you want to put it out longer than 12 months, which I don't necessarily recommend for something as small as $2,000, you can take this on at a level that you can afford. And you're going to get me and my father. We've coached everyone from the Millers, the Woods, the Livingstons, the Rennas, the Bishops, you name it. We've worked with them to teach these principles that actually create the alignment and the change from the inside out so that you can get to where you're going. And trust me, we are not shy about the fact that this is going to be about measurable outcomes. This is going to be about getting your business to where it deserves to be. Whether that floats your boat or not, whether you're going, I'd die to be a global, or you're like, nah, I couldn't care less. We want you to be more successful because of how many people it serves and the lives it blesses. But we're not shy about talking about both equally, because they should be talked about equally and unapologetically, and getting the opportunity to live out loud. Okay. So real quick, I'll send an email to everybody that registered for this as well, or I'll actually send the links to the Rennas and the Bishops, but let me throw this in the chat for those of you that want to make sure that you're one of the first in line for the 20. Give me just a second. I'm going to throw in the link for the order form for those of you who just want to put it on a card or just pay for it with just out of pocket. Sorry, my computer's running a little slow with Zoom open. And then I'll also include the link for the financing, which you can fill out the application without it hurting your credit. It's a soft pull. Okay, it doesn't touch your credit, to get approved, to see if you get approved so you know it's an option. And then we'll see that you filled out the application. If you got approved, we'll follow up with you to complete that process if you're good with the terms. But just remember, when you fill out the application, you're doing it for $2,000, not any more, not any less. That covers you. And on top of the 6 months, every other week group coaching that we're going to do together with me and Dave and you guys, you also get a one-on-one session with me or Dave before we start to be able to dive into your habit finder assessment, because that individual session sets the tone for how deep you can go in the group. Without it, we can still be effective, but we can go so much deeper. And while I'm pulling up these links, if you guys have any questions, you can pop off mute and go ahead and let me know. Oh, it's making me log back into it. Just 2 seconds. So as soon as great question, Eva, apologize, could go either way. Then we will, as soon as the 20s hit, which could happen tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, whatever, then we're going to get with that group, and we want to say we need probably 2 weeks to do all the one-on-one sessions. But then we want to get the 20 people together and say, what's the best time of day? What's the best day of the week to find an option that works best for everybody? Typically we've been doing them with Optavia in the evenings, but we can really, Eric, great question. I'll let Shane and or Megan or Brandon answer that one.
What's his question?
If it will
this help me in my marriage?
Hands down.
Yeah.
Like I wrote, you are the common denominator in all of these areas of your life. So if you change you and it helps you, then it would easily flow out of there.
Yeah. So number one reason we started working with Paul was to work on our marriage.
Yeah.
And it was easier to work with Paul than some of the other people because he already knew the business model. So it wasn't a bunch of explanation of what we were also trying to do within coaching.
Yeah.
It just simplified that process. He had a great understanding of the model and what we do. And so it was more just kind of digging in deep right away.
Yeah. Everything's on the table. It all factors in. And if you're open to it, it goes there, and it's so helpful. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay, there's the link to the order form. And let me copy the link to the application for those of you who need a little bit more flexibility financially and want to fill out it'll take you like 2 minutes to fill out the pre-approval for the financing. I just threw those in the chat. So the augmendino.lp merchant solutions, you can go to. And Eric, and to everybody, business problems are just personal problems in disguise. So the opportunity to be able to get in there and be able to take on your business, it's impossible when you're focused on the alignment we talked about tonight, the intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic, to not have it impact everything around, including your relationships, your health, your finances, and everything else. So the first one, the Infusionsoft one, is the secure order form. You can make payment through there. Make sure you get one of the first 20 spots, or you can go through and we'll go through the applications as we see people fill them out and follow up with the ones that were approved to get you in as well as they come in, first come, first serve. Okay, absolutely. In fact, where is Eric on here so I can?
Eric's an amazing man.
If he's ready for me, Eric, he's ready for you.
By the way, the pre-approval is not a hit on your credit. To actually finalize the document, it is an inquiry poll, which is it's the smallest ping that you can have on your credit, and usually within 30, 45 days it's gone. I was a credit consultant years ago. One more thing I'm going to do for you guys is if you want to join as a couple, you can do so by just paying for one of you under 2 circumstances. One, you're okay with one set of materials because we ship out a whole coaching kit to you for the materials and everything. If you're good with one set of materials and you're okay, and you both have to be on the same Zoom because it needs to be one window for the 2 of you, I'm happy to let you join any of you that want to join as a couple. Okay, so you don't have to pay for each of you. I don't want to get fickle about, nickels and dimes with stuff like that. So you're very welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question because obviously, one-on-one coaching is kind of what we get to do with people, and we're dialing in specific issues for them. And obviously, it sounds like we're pretty similar as a group. But how does that work with group versus one-on-one as far as
can I ask a couple questions about your business?
Sure.
How long have you been with Optavia?
Well, I've been coaching strong since July.
Okay. What's your current rank?
ED.
ED. Are you FIBIC yet?
Executive director. Sorry?
Are you FIBIC yet?
No.
Okay. The amount of time you've been in the company and your rank, you're going to get so much of it. I'd rather have you get a $10,000 ROI on a $2,000 investment and then step up and take it even further with a personal coach than try to leapfrog and get a $10,000 return from a $10,000 investment. I mean, you'd get more than that from, and we typically offer our $10,000 coaching package to a lot of health coaches for $8,000, but regardless of that, just maturation in the company and where your current rank is, it's perfect for the way we're going to take on this group. It's ideal.
Awesome. Thanks.
And I think the fact that so many of us are that percentage of like the fantastical thinkers and resisting structure, so much of it will apply to the group at large.
Any other questions about anything? It doesn't have to be logistics or whatever. Like, I was thinking about what happened last week and you made me think about it this way and whatever. And
I enjoy hearing the breakdown of the intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic all being in alignment again. We get lost in the weeds sometimes, and that reminds me of the structure that we're going through. And so I don't know, I can take a deep breath and just keep working on it. So
I just want to thank Paul for his time tonight and for helping us, I know, change our thermostat setting in so many ways, and again, all aspects of our lives.
So real quick, before I have Shane close us for the night, I saw we're in from Donna, we're in from Kristen. If you could type in the chat just so I get an idea of where we're at right now, who needs more questions answered, who knows they're ready for this, who's still on the fence, who's like, this isn't for me, which is totally fine. I'm not one of those coaches is like everybody's for this. Like if you didn't connect with anything I said tonight, that's totally okay. This isn't for everybody. So, okay. Totally fair, Keith. Awesome. Gotta talk to the boss. Okay. Awesome. Caitlin, the financing option can be a way to really knock down a really small monthly payment on that. So check that out. Amber's curious. Awesome. Thank you. That's a totally safe place to be. Follow up with your mentors, with the Renas or the Bishops, respectively, whoever's team you're on. And then if they feel like a conversation with me would be worthwhile just to kind of cover some things they weren't sure about or whatever, I'd be happy to reach out and do that for you guys. So, Zach, is it worth it? I purposely not called on Zach because they coached with one of my favorite people on the planet who left us this last year, and it's going to make me cry if I do it. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's awesome, Paul. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Kristen, you're only like 2 weeks in. Is it worth it?
I would definitely say it's worth it. Get ready to dig deep and uncover some stuff about yourself that you don't know exists. He's got a magical way of helping you see things that you don't normally see.
I don't know anyone that knows more movie quotes than Paul, too. So he's always great at relating what you're going through to making you laugh about some movie you've seen. So
yeah.
That's helpful to break it up.
It has to, because like he said, we go into impatience and then disappointment, or what was the word that we made up? Anticipantment. And then you immediately want to beat yourself up, and then there's just something to laugh about, because I mean, we've all seen movies, and so there's just, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting way of coaching, and so, but it whips you out of that really quick, and you just go into laughing about it, which is where you got to stay in order to create. So,
and it's really fun to get to do these sessions. And by the way, I want to address something really quick. You don't have to be a certain rank for the group. We have general standards we try to adhere to just to honor you in terms of allowing you to invest in personal coaching. that we want to make sure that you're getting the best options at the most affordable rates, especially if you're new at a certain rank. We've taken people who hadn't even hit senior coach yet to ED in some of these groups. And we've gotten people sponsoring coaches that hadn't sponsored coaches in their businesses for a year and a half and all kinds of stuff. So the group, it's not about where you're at in rank. If you're considering personal coaching, like Kristen, who's been in the business for quite some time and who's reached those higher ranks of national and global and things, those are generally where our sweet spots are from national and above. We've got a couple of regionals we've worked with, but they were at higher ranks before then. So, and Carrie brings up a great point. The busier you feel, the more important it is for you to do this, just because you've heard give a man a fish or a woman, 2018, rock and roll, or teach them to fish. Well, we want to teach you to fish in a storm. Like I salivate when I hear about someone having challenges with balance or too much going on within reason. I mean, Carrie, I would honor your decision either way, but I do want to challenge the group overall that if you're like, oh, this is something else to do, because it's not like Optavia doesn't already have a few calls for you to join. This is going to be very different. This is going to be a very direct approach to taking the hour and 15 minutes, sometimes hour and a half you'll spend with us every 2 weeks and giving you hours back. In fact, I think on that note, it'd be great to let Shane wrap up with before I cut you off. Sorry, Shane.
Thank you, Paul. This has been just amazing. Thank you for serving all our folks. I mean, and you guys have already got to experience just what a little bit of that interaction with Paul is like. Also, I went through this process of just making my decision. It was, Paul would tell you, it was a little while, and it took me a second. And he's there. Paul and Dave's philosophies match ours from the perspective of they're really showing up to serve people, and you guys are in amazing hands. And so I'm excited for this group. I'm excited to be a part of it with you guys and just to grow together. So anyways, thanks again, Paul, for hosting this and sharing with us all. So
thanks, Shane. It's super fun to get to do these groups with my dad too, because he's like the Zen master and I'm just a force of nature. So it's a really, really fun balance. It's part of what's created an amazing outcome and experience for people. And any of you who have never met my father, you'll know what I mean, and you'll be really glad you participated. So Megan, if you guys can make sure you've got the link, I'll email it out to you guys right after we close here. And then I'll make sure the recording gets posted on like a unlisted YouTube channel or something like that, so we can send it out to the group as well. I've got a feeling this group's going to fill up pretty quick, so we'll probably want to get that out to everybody else. If you're on the fence, highly recommend you jump off of it. We're a great side to land on. And let's rock and roll. Let's make this happen. So we do all of our coaching with a performance guarantee. We don't do income guarantees because you've got to do the work. We don't do money back guarantees because 18 years we just don't get asked for them. But we do performance guarantees where we guarantee you'll receive a benefit in proportion to your investment, or we'll work with you for free until you do. And Don, that is totally the right response. My soon-to-be 11-year-old Layla would call that nervous-sighted. And I get worried when people aren't nervous-sighted, because it usually means they're ignorant if they're not nervous, meaning they weren't paying attention. And the same about being excited. So, all right, so grab those links, jump on the order form if you're going to pay with a card or whatever. Check out the financing if that's the best option for you. Let's figure out who this group is going to be as quickly as possible so we can figure out the dates and rock and roll. This is a really fun time to be doing this, because this is the time that everybody's buying into the story of the holidays and all that crap and waiting until January 1st to start their new year. I do a power session every Tuesday with a different group, and they know our rule in our Habit Finder Academy is New Year starts on November 1st. If you want to have the best year of your life, start 2 months early. And building the momentum in the first third of our coaching together, and then to handle the storm that will be yours to ride of 2019 in an amazing way. It's great timing. Super excited. What is it called? What you do, since it is not coaching? Mindset Architect. Thank you, Christina. I used to call myself a habit dynamics specialist, but mindset architect sounded way cooler. I have to thank one of my coaches for that one. Hard to spell. That's awesome. Love it. Any other questions before we hop off? Don't be shy. I don't want anyone to jump off here and go, oh, if I had asked this, I would have joined the group. Because if you're in the group, you're going to have plenty of time.
This is Christina. Quick question.
Yes,
I have an appointment with a habit finder specialist to follow up on my results. So if I am interested in the group, do I continue with my appointment tomorrow, or do I just hang tight?
Nope. I already followed up with Bobby because I know he had called a few of you today.
Yeah.
And said, so sorry, I forgot to tell you I've got an event tonight. And so it just naturally sent you guys through the system.
Oh, okay.
And I asked Bobby to handle all of our Optavia ones because he's my best guy. Just amazing. If you got an opportunity to talk with him, you know what I'm talking about. But just send him an email, or I'll give him a heads up. I think he's still here at the office. If you have any questions for him about the group, that would be more of a conversation that you and I could have if you want to message me or through the Rennas or Bishops or whatever. But he's not going to be offended if you say, I was on last night. Don't worry about me.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And same for anyone else that he might have inadvertently reached out to today. Oh, and Kristen talked with Brandon. Yeah, Brandon got an offer to go back into working with troubled youth, which is where one of his passions is, and I couldn't not let him go because he's amazing with that group of young peeps. So Brandon's phenomenal people. Any other questions? All of you are like on the edge of your seat waiting to see if someone's going to ask something. Anybody? This is fun for me. Any clarifications about anything I shot out at you tonight, or anything that I can leave you with that would serve you regardless of whether you join the group or not?
Paul, are you going to start the clock at a certain time in terms of when you're going to open registration for this group and then end it when it's full?
So registration's open right now.
Okay.
And it ends when we hit 20.
Okay.
Which there were over 70 people registered for this tonight. There were 45, 50 in attendance. So based on past experiences with this size of group, for people that are really ready to grow, which is what I get the sense of from you guys, those 20 spots will be filled really quick.
Yeah, tonight probably. Okay.
Congratulations, Michelle. That's awesome. Boston admin and texting new clients. Any suggestions for a new coach to start off right? So for a new coach, I would highly recommend identifying just 3 things you can focus on every day. One of those might be the 3, 3, and 3, or it might be starting with the 1, 1, and 1, or whatever. I mean, find the increments that are going to work for you. But work with your mentor, whoever brought you in, or their mentor, Michelle, and find just 3 things, the magic power of 3 that you can focus on every day. And don't get overwhelmed with the admin. Most of overwhelm with admin is like overwhelm with laundry. It's a lot more about overwhelm beyond what it actually takes to get it done. It's overwhelm with the idea of getting it done rather than what it actually takes. So if you need to take a step back and do one of the most powerful admin exercises in the world, you ready? This is it. This is what I want you to do the next time you're overwhelmed, Michelle. And you're ready to go. Okay? For a new coach, it can be that simple to be able to just step back, breathe. The 4 pillars of life, and this is the kind of stuff you're going to get. Sneak preview, it's amazing. 4 pillars of life. Number 4, movement. Number 3, nutrition. Number 2, hydration. Number 1 is breathing. Most people only focus on movement and nutrition. Optavia makes a pretty good emphasis on hydration, but breathing is the one thing you can live the least amount of time without, and few people know how to actually feed their body oxygen. In this group, I'm going to teach you how to feed your body oxygen because it's so important to your level of awareness and being able to shift that thermostat. So awesome, Sarah. That's super awesome. What could I do? G7 Thin Q. Yeah. If that's your birth name, that's amazing. Super awesome. I think there was a message earlier from G7. Now I'm thinking that I might have missed. What could I do with my habit info for understanding and growth if I'm unable to join the group? So one would be really diligently studying it. We have some books that you can get that could be helpful. G7 Thin Q. You could join the power sessions, which is a $497 investment rather than the $2,000, but it's not going to be the same as to what we're going to take everybody through the 6 months. So we have some other options. So G7 Thin Q or anybody else, where it's just absolutely not an option. If it's just because it scares you or you're nervous about it or it's a lot of money, jump in, performance guarantee, 6 months, and make a huge impact. And my favorite part is jumping back on a call like this with everybody who joined and seeing I can't believe where I'd be at if I hadn't done this kind of thing. So not sure why you can't see my question. Oh, sorry, because I was unintentionally missing it from all the other people that were typing it. Not sure why you can't see what math or science is this based on? It is the formal science of axiological mathematics. It was created by Dr. Robert Hartman. The principles that we teach are from real life experiences and implementation. Augmendino's principles. If you've never read The Greatest Salesman in the World, you're going to get to know it in this group. It's one of the greatest books ever written. And the principles of it are amazing. It's not a sales book, if any of you haven't read it and you're a little thrown off by that. But they're based on real life, applicable, battle-tested, proven principles, Augmendino's principles, and axiological mathematics. That's where we marry the intuition and the science so that we can actually teach you the things, because we can coach with someone and then we can measure what kind of an impact things are actually having. So we know what really works, and we also know how to approach you based on how you're specifically thinking, which is also why you start with a one-on-one session before we even start the group. So great questions. All right. I think we're getting there. I think we're there. Any last words, questions, comments, verbal abuse? We're good?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thanks everybody. Message the Renas or the Bishops respectively for the links for the order form or the financing, whichever one works for you. Jump on it quickly, talk to the boss, your business partner, spouse, whatever. Have a conversation with you. You're totally welcome to do that. And let's jump in and make this happen and get moving to be ready for an incredible 2019 and a huge bang finish to 2018. All right, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful night.